What's going on, guys? This is Logan here at Vaporleaf. I'm here today with the SMOK GX350. This is our second quad 18650 battery device that we've looked at, capable of doing up to 350 watts and all kinds of temp control. It's pretty standard SMOK stuff. If you've seen one SMOK Tech chip before, then you've probably seen them all. They're all pretty standard these days. They've got about the same settings on everything, but the difference with this one is it takes 4 batteries, so you've got a lot more power and battery life available for you. So let's go ahead and dive down and take a closer look at it. Alright guys, so here we are up close and personal with the SMOK GX350 Quad 18650 Cloud Beast. Let's go ahead and open the box up here. Let's just take the sleeve off to start with there. Again, super standard SMOK box there, just black with a little bit of silver labeling on there. If we open that up, we get our device inside of there. You don't get much else with it. You get a couple little manuals and a micro USB cable. For the device itself, obviously I have the gold finish here. It's got a little bit of that carbon fiber look on there. You can probably see that it's not actual carbon fiber, but it's, you know, close enough. You've got the little SMOK labeling up there. You've got your big fire button here. This whole side here is your fire button. It very clearly hinges from the bottom and pushes at the top. It does not push at all on this side, so really you're only affecting this side, even if you were to just squeeze the whole thing. Right here we've got a pretty clever little detail on the micro USB port. It's actually covered up with this little rubber piece here. Now, that's clever because you've got your 510 up top right next to that micro USB port. I imagine that's because they couldn't fit the chip down the side here with the size of this device, so they had to put everything up here, including the micro USB port. Now, if this tank up here or atomizer or whatever you're using were to leak, it could very easily leak down into that port and just break your whole device. So, we've got a nice little seal on there to keep everything nice and clean. Again, up top here, you've got a 510 connection, nice and clean on there. You've got a couple of screws. You got your screen here, kind of an odd shape on top, but it's kind of cool. It's got that little bevel around the side there. Your up and down adjustment bar, you do actually have up on this side and down on this side. And then down here you have your big old battery door. Now, there are a couple things I would like to say about this battery door. It's a little loosey-goosey when you're just toying around with it there. It's not too bad, and it's not really something that you need to worry about that much. When you actually get batteries in there, I'll show you in just a second, it kind of bends outward. And for me, I had a very difficult time actually opening this battery door and getting these batteries out of here. Inside of here, though, you can see that we've got our 4 terminals here for our batteries. We do, of course, have them down inside of there as well, marked positive and negative. Now, up here, we've also got lettering A, B, C, and D. The reason for that is because you can also run this with 2 batteries. You can run just on the A and B slots here, which is why it looks like they have them circled together here. Now, of course, in quad battery mode, you can get up to 350 watts out of this, but in dual battery mode, it turns it into a pretty standard SMOK device and limits you to 220 watts. Still pretty solid there. Let's go ahead and throw a few batteries in here. Now, the other thing that I noticed is this back slot here, closest to the door, is pretty snug. I was a little worried I wasn't going to be able to get my battery out of there the first time, but it ended up working out. I didn't really have any problems getting it out of there. In fact, I had more trouble, if you watched my RX300 video, getting those batteries out than getting these batteries out of here, even in the tightest slot back there. So now, we can just close that door up, nice and tight, and then slide it back. Do kind of have to squeeze that. It's a pretty snug door. Again, it took a lot of work to get that door back open. So, not the easiest door in my opinion, but I'm sure that'll break in over time. Now, as for actually using the device, what we want to do is, of course, 5 clicks to turn it on. Screen kind of fades in there, and then it boots straight up. Now, this will fire all the way down to 6 watts here, but of course, if we crank it up, it'll bring it all the way up to 350 watts. So, while we're doing this, you can see we've got our wattage up here. We've got our preheat setting there. It's normal right now. The W there indicating wattage. 2 batteries. Doesn't show all 4, but close enough, really. You get your ohms there, your voltage, and then the time vaped on your last puff. And sorry about that little scuff on the screen there, too. That's just from the screen protector. So that'll come right off. To start off with, you can lock the device by either doing 5 clicks on the fire button, same thing to unlock, or you can just tap the bar there, the up and down buttons together. Lock and unlock. Super quick. And that does, in fact, not just lock these, but the fire button as well. So you just tap, you can use it, tap, you can't use it. So definitely a much faster way of doing it there. Now, as is typical with a lot of these SMOK chips, you just do the 3 clicks to get into the menu here, and you can either use the fire button to scroll through all the different settings, or you can use the up-down buttons here. When you want to select a setting, you just hold the fire button down. So we've got mode, puff, setting, and power. So we hold the fire button down to select power, we can go over to off, hold the fire button down, and it says goodbye and fades out. Again, it's going to be 5 clicks to turn that back on, we get the fade in and the boot back up. And the other thing that you can do is lock it, and then just hold the fire button down for 5 seconds. Really, I don't think either of those ways is particularly convenient for turning it on and off, but I mean, if you just lock it, you can even do that just bar tap there. It's pretty much off. You don't really have to worry about it at that point. You can treat it like it's off. So again, in the menu here, we can hold for mode, go into watt or temp here. Now if you choose watt, you can choose your preheat strength. We've got soft, normal, and hard. Select by holding the fire button down. Get rid of that little lock there. And then we've got a normal preheat. 3 clicks to get back into the menu. We can hold mode, go to temp, hold that down, change our wattage in temp control, change which material we're using in temp control, and change our coefficient of resistance. You will have to look up the coefficient of resistance for your coil unless you're already familiar with it. Now the interesting thing is, instead of going into that menu, you can also just tap the fire button and to the left, and it brings you into exactly the same settings here. And if we do fire button and to the right, that gets us to change our wattage in temp control here. If we were in wattage mode, we can also do that to change our preheat. The fire button to the right. So anyway, 1, 2, 3, get back into the menu there. We can scroll over to puff. Now this is just going to be about your max puffs and puff reset and all that stuff. Most people won't care about that one, but now you know how to do it if you do. 1, 2, 3, get back into the menu. We can get to setting. This is basically going to be settings that didn't fit into other menus. So you've got stealth mode to turn the screen off while you're vaping, contrast to change the brightness of the screen, screen rotation if you just want it to be flipped, and adjust ohm. Now that one is actually pretty interesting. If the atomizer is reading a little bit too far off, or you want it to read a little bit differently, anything like that, you can toy around with that a little bit to get it to read a little differently. After adjust ohm, we've got download, so we actually have to put it into the download mode in order to upgrade the firmware, and then it brings us back to stealth. So really that's about all there is to this chip. It's pretty simple once you get the hang of it, and it's kind of nice that they added those shortcuts by using the fire button into the left, fire button into the right, and just tap both buttons there. Makes things a lot simpler. I didn't really like this chip before they did that, and in fact maybe they had done it before and I just never knew. But anyway, let's go ahead and bring it up top and see how it vapes. There is actually one last thing I'd like to show you guys before I bring it up top so you can see a little closer. I screwed on my Buddha here. This is a 30mm RDA. There is a little bit of overhang off the front. It's not terrible. It's definitely worse on my Relo. But it does hit the screen a little bit there, so I can't actually screw it down all the way. And that is a little annoying. Anyway, let's go ahead and see how it does. Alright guys, moment of truth. I've got my gold Buddha on here at 350 watts. It's reading 0.26 ohms. I've just got the normal preheat. I'm just going to see how it does raw 350 watts. See what happens. Wow. That was more than I expected, to be honest. I mean, from the RX300, I know that 300, well, more accurately, 4 18650s is a whole lot of power, but I think that might actually be a little bit more powerful than the RX300. In fact, you know, by now I'm sure they've released some kind of update for the RX300, and it's like, now it can do 400 watts or something like that. But anyway, that I think feels a little stronger than the RX300, and the RX300 was already pretty uncomfortable. Now that being said, these are pretty big coils on a 30mm RDA. I'm not exactly running out of room on it, but it's a lot. So I feel like 350 watts is getting into pretty unrealistic territory. Maybe there are some people that are like, man, my RX300 is just not quite enough. I need that extra 50 watts, and maybe this does the trick for you, but I think those people are few and far between. Let's go ahead and take a couple more puffs and see who breaks first, me or the device. You know, that second puff wasn't... Jeez, vapor everywhere. That second puff wasn't so bad. I just pulled really, really hard, and it was a little more bearable. It wasn't just muggy and gross and super freaking hot. It was actually pretty alright. Boy, you really have to pull, though. I'm pretty impressed by the output on this device. I didn't really think that it was going to be able to put out that kind of power, but I think that might be a little bit more power than 300, judging by the RX300 at least. Now, I'm interested to see how it does in stainless steel temp control mode. You guys might be familiar with the coils that I have on here. They're my big stainless steel fused Claptons, and I always run them on my DNA 200 at 200 watts and about 500 degrees. Kind of depends on the day, really. So I'm going to bump this up all the way up to 350 watts. Put it on the steel setting. Now, it gives me 0.00105 for the temperature coefficient of resistance. Wow, that really goes. Okay, it's set up to 560 degrees. I think I'm going to turn it down to 480 for now. See if we can actually stick to 480, because I do know what that feels like, and it is not nearly as uncomfortable as 350 watts. So in this case, the 350 watts should really just be a preheat. It should just get the coils going really quick, and then once it hits that 480 degrees, it should reduce that wattage and keep me at 480 degrees. I'm already having to re-drip on my RDA. I just did it before those few puffs, and even though this thing has a really deep well, it is really going through that juice. So, 480 degrees, stainless steel temp control, 350 watt preheat. Let's see how it goes. Surprisingly well, actually. That was pretty comfortable. I think with that 350 watt preheat, it is trying to push beyond 480 degrees, but that's less than 350, or at least the 350 that I was getting before. So that actually seems pretty good. I'm impressed. I think SMOK has really found their stride. They know what they're doing these days. They found a chipset that worked just like Joyetech. They're sticking with it. They're not doing anything to revolutionize it. They're just doing little things here and there, upgrades really, to improve small bits of it, and really just make it a more reliable chip altogether. As far as the build quality goes, that I do find is pretty standard SMOK tech. I'm not that impressed with it. It's not bad by any means. It's perfectly adequate, and one of my coworkers has been using this for, boy, I don't know, maybe a month now, and it looks pretty much the same as when she got it. So that's pretty good, especially considering that I've heard a lot of complaints about the paint on SMOK products lately, and hers seems to be standing up pretty darn well. She's got a couple little scuffs and stuff, but it's not something that you would see, it's not something that you wouldn't see on a Relo, or, I don't know, a Fuchai, really any other device. I do hate the battery door. I'm just gonna come out and say it, I hate that battery door. I think it is a horrible design. I have a really hard time getting it open. But to be fair, that's probably the only way that they could make that battery door and make the whole device this small. Which, by the way, how did they make this device so small? This is Relo-shaped, but instead of being cut off on the end, it's just round. It's like a half-inch longer than a Relo. I have no idea how they managed to cram everything in here and still get this kind of power output. It's really, really impressive. I do like the size. Along with that, I do really like the hand feel. I really like the trigger, too. I do love just the whole, just squeeze it and just chug on it sort of thing. It's pretty intense. It's a pretty intense device, so I think it's fitting. I like that they put the little rubber seal over the micro USB port, and they weren't just like, well, sucks for you if you get juice in there. The screen, I find to be perfectly adequate. You guys might have seen the, say, the Alien screen. That one is a little overkill. I think there's too much information on there, especially for most people. For me, it's kind of interesting. I kind of like to see all that stuff all at once. But on this one, you get what you need. You get batteries, temperature, wattage, ohms, voltage. And I mean, the time vaped on your last puff, they did work a little silly stuff in there, but what are you gonna do? I don't really like the menu system on SMOK devices, but I think with the little shortcuts they added in there, it makes it 1,000 times easier. I'm pretty impressed with how easy it is to get through. You almost don't even need to remember the whole 3 clicks to get into the menu thing, because you can just do the fire button to the left, fire button to the right, and then just hold the bar, and that's pretty much all you need to know outside of hold to vape. Altogether, I've got to say, personally, I'm not in love with this device, but I am really impressed with it. I can see why people are falling in love with it. It's really impressive. And the power output, wow! I think this does actually beat the RX300. I don't know if that's just a matter of allowing the device to draw more power from the batteries by setting the limit to 350 watts, or if I'm making it up, or what, but that is serious power, which I suppose, isn't really surprising. You get 4 18650s in there. It's insane. And with that, too, I will say, this is a really heavy atomizer, but it doesn't feel unrealistically heavy. It's a little lighter than I expected. A lot lighter, actually. I think the RX300 is very... just the shell itself is a little beefier than this thing, and again, maybe I'm making it up, but I think this guy's a little bit lighter than the RX300 as well. So I think those are really, really close competitors. I would go for the RX300 for build quality, and I like their menu system better. I would go for this for comfort, really kind of ease of use and portability. I think this would fit into a pocket better than the RX300. And the hand feel, boy howdy, that's one thing that the RX300 really fell short on. It was not terribly comfortable to hold. This thing, this is great. It's like a pillow for your hand. That's how comfortable it is. So thank you so much for watching. I think that's going to do it for today, guys. If you have any questions about the device, please feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to figure out any questions that you have for me. And if you liked the video, go ahead and leave me a like. And for all the latest and greatest videos from Vaporleaf, be sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.